Hi folks, this is Ray from DCRaymaker.com. Today I've got Garmin's new Edge 520. Do a bit of a walkthrough on how the unit works. We'll start off with the size. So if you look to the left here, I've got the Edge 510. You'll see it's a little bit bigger than the 520. So the 520 shrunk down a bit. It's not quite as small as the Edge 500 that you have in the past. So it's not as, as tiny as that, but it's certainly smaller than the 510. So for most folks, it'll work just fine. On the back of the unit, there is a standard Garmin Edge quick release, Edge quarter turn mount there. So that'll go ahead and pop into the Garmin mount system as well as any third parties that support the quarter turn mount. So that's pretty handy. Now if you go to the main dashboard here, what you see is that it's kind of arranged vertically. The way it works, you can go up and you get into what's called a status page. The status page shows your brightness of the backlight. We have the GPS status. I can go ahead and dive into this, for example, and then choose different GPS types that I may want to use or to disable the GPS altogether. I can go down into sensors and I can see here that I have my heart rate and power connected right now. And then if I go down to the power meter itself, I can just instantly calibrate it straight from there. So pretty straightforward. You'll notice that I've got the smartphone connected. So on the Edge 520, it does allow you to go ahead and get smartphone notifications for text and phone calls. It does not show notifications from the center, so for the notification center itself. So if you have ones coming, for example, from an application like Twitter or Instagram or Angry Birds, that won't actually make it through to the Edge itself, only text and phone calls. So now we're back on the main screen here. Before we go into the ride settings, I'm going to go down into what is basically the overall settings for the unit. So you can see I went down here and now I have history, training, my stats, and settings. History is kind of what you'd expect, so I can look at my rides that I've got on there. So I can go over to yesterday, for example, and look at different rides I have right there. Pretty straightforward. And I can get map information on that, which I'll get into in a little bit later. And if I go back here to the main page, I'm down to training. Now this is what gets pretty cool. So what we've got first up is courses. These are the same courses you know and love in terms of just giving you breadcrumb directions, kind of the follow the dotted line type of scenario, as well as some turn navigation. It won't tell you turn left on Maple Street, but it will tell you that you need to have an approaching turn. Then we've got the biggie here, which is Strava Live segments. So this is probably the most asked for feature on the Garmin lineup, and now you can go ahead and get basically competitive information on the Strava segments that you're riding in as you're riding. So I can go ahead and open up this segment right here, which is just above me on the street, and then I can go and look at, for example, the leaderboard. And I don't have many on this particular segment, but I just created this yesterday to kind of demonstrate this. But I can look at elevation, for example, the map I can pull up and actually look and see where the segment is on a map. Well, again, we'll get into the mapping here in a moment. So you can see that loop there, it just kind of pulls around the islands here. And then it'll go ahead and give that feedback as you're working through the segment itself. So it'll tell you how far ahead or behind you are, as well as the leader positions. And it'll show you basically the king of the mountain or the course record, as well as if you have people that you follow, you'll see those displayed here as well. Next we have workouts. So this allows you to go ahead and do structured workouts downloaded from Garmin Connect. So for example, here is a trainer workout I created. If I go to preview the workout, I can see different steps that I just put inside of that, repeats and so on. Now the reason why that's really interesting is because if I go back down here, I've got the indoor trainer option. This is new to the Edge 520. What this allows you to do is control an ANT Plus enabled trainer. In particular, ones that have the ANT Plus FE-C designation, which means they're the fitness equipment control trainers. So right now that is the Tax Smart Series lineup, and then coming soon also the Wahoo Kicker and Kicker Snap. And it sounds like other companies will also support that. That means that I can actually directly from this unit here ride both a structured workout as well as ride a past activity. So for example, I can take the ride I did yesterday and re-ride that on the trainer, and it'll automatically change the trainer's resistance based on the elevation within the ride itself. Next I can go down, these are kind of your standard targets and intervals that you may want to set. For example, if you wanted to go ahead and distance, time, and so on. This is different than alerts. Alerts are elsewhere in the settings, but that just kind of gives you a bit of the overview there. Now within my stats, there are some new features here. First off is a recovery advisor. This shows you how many hours you have left to recover. You've seen this in the past on some of the Forerunner and Triathlon products, so now it's over on the Edge 520. And then the VO2 max assessment will pop in here as well after you've ridden with the power meter and the heart rate monitor. We also have FTP tracking, so right now this will automatically calculate FTP, and in this case I haven't done an FTP test, so it's just doing this based on, I guess, my rides over the last few days, which are relatively easy, kind of going across town. So if I were to do a much harder interval ride, that would show up here, and we see those results. Personal records, very similar to what you have seen on a lot of other running devices, where to go ahead and show you, for example, your fastest record and whatnot. We have this in the Edge 1000 series device, so that's not terribly new. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to the main page here. At this point I would start a ride, so I go ahead and click select there, and then I can choose an activity profile. So the Edge 520 does not have any bike profiles. It has what are called a activity profile, and those allow you to group settings together. So you can go, for example, have data pages that are customized, or to have different auto app settings, things like that. Those are all within activity profiles. If you have different bikes, the way you handle that is what's called a sensor pool. The sensor pool allows you to add all of your ANT+ accessories, all your sensors in that, and then the Edge itself will automatically pick up which sensors are connected when you start riding your bike. It works pretty well. It was introduced on the Edge 1000, and it's now kind of the standard across all of Garmin's latest devices. In this case, I'm just going to choose the train profile. You can name those whatever you want. The one you see that was called Strava there was one that I created. At this point, I'm back to the sort of the standard data fields that you would have expected to see on most of the Garmin devices. Nothing terribly new here. You can have up to 10 fields per page, and you can have up to 5 customized pages, plus another 5 pages that are things like map and compass and elevation and so on. So speaking of the map, this is the map right here. Now, by default, the unit comes with what's called a global base map. That map isn't terribly awesome. It has a couple roads, like for example in the city of Paris here, there's precisely one road all the way around it, and it has a river that goes through it, and that's it. But what you can do is you can add what's called OpenStreetMaps. These are free online maps. In this case, it shows much more detail, so you can see the streets, and I can zoom in and zoom out. So this is great for adding a small map. It doesn't have a ton of storage space, only about 50 megs, but in this case I was easily able to get the entire Paris region, and I checked and get, for example, Sydney, Australia, hundreds of miles in every direction, and the same with Washington DC and so on. So you can fit quite a bit on there. Just kind of scrolling through some of the pages here. This would be the elevation page if I was to start going somewhere, but I haven't yet. Lap summary page, and then the custom pages. Now, at any point in time, if I'm going to go and just start this, which is the bottom button down here, so just kind of walk through the buttons real quick. Left-hand side is light, then I have an up and a down button. I have my lap button, my start and stop button. This is the back button right there, and this is sort of the selector button. So I'm going to start the ride. There we go, so you can see the indication that it started. Now, if I wanted to lap, I just press this button right at the bottom there, and that sets the lap. Now I can go up here to this upper right button, and this will access, this will access the menu and the status page. The status page allows me to go into kind of deeper settings, the same status page that we saw earlier in the unit when I was kind of walking through the beginning features. But I can go ahead and down and set alerts, data field configuration, elevation, and so on. And if I want to get back to the menu, I just go ahead and hit back like that. So fairly straightforward. When I'm done with the ride, I hit the stop button there, and then in a couple seconds it'll ask me if I like to save the ride, discard the ride, and so on. And now once I were to complete and save this ride, it would automatically sync to my phone, because my phone is still connected to it. And then from there, it would go to Garmin Connect Online. And at that point, I have both Strava and Training Peaks configured, as well as Sport Tracks, so it automatically sync to those 3 services. That's very similar to how it's been working for the last year or so. So nothing terribly new on that front, but it just works pretty much as you'd expect. So that's a quick overview of the Edge 520. If you'd like more information, go ahead and check out the link at the bottom there for the link to my, link to my full kind of post on it, and then eventual in-depth review. Thanks for watching.